Good morning. All right, so if you're here today, you may be thinking about moving to the cloud. Or perhaps you're already in the cloud and you're looking for ways to do more. Now, according to a RightScale 2019 State of the Cloud report, the #1 priority for organizations in the cloud is to optimize their cloud spending. #2 is to move more workloads to the cloud. So what does that say? That means that organizations are trying to migrate and modernize to the cloud faster, and they want to do it efficiently. And this includes their most important assets, their data, their databases. Now, the future of the databases is in the cloud, and according to Gartner, any new additional dollars that's going to on-prem databases is going to be limited to maintenance. So what is driving all this momentum? What's driving it? My personal story, before I came to Google, I built trading and risk management systems for some of the largest financial institutions in the world. Now, the mission's simple: to build financial software that enables fast, frictionless, and secure financial markets. But doing that also involved a lot of time and effort spent doing other things, things like hardware procurement and supply chain management and network setup and software upgrades. We were spending so much time on technology that didn't differentiate us that it was getting harder and harder to focus on technology that does. Sound familiar? And of course, that leaves you with strained staff that's focusing on technology that's not core to your business, legacy systems that don't give you the flexibility you need to be able to scale your businesses. Cloud allows you to change that. It allows you to focus on technology that differentiates your business and to defocus technology that does not. And it allows you to do that in a more secure and compliant way than you're able to do with your on-prem setup. And it's not just about freeing up the resources. It's also having a technology platform that's more agile, and it enables faster product development and innovation. And what happens to those that are not able to do that transition? Well, they risk being at a competitive disadvantage. And not just loss of market share and inefficiency of deployed capital, but potentially being disrupted out of the market completely. As part of my role, I spend a lot of time with CXOs, and they're under a lot of pressure. They're under pressure from their boards, they're under pressure from their users, and they're under pressure from their competitors. I was recently talking with a head of digital for one of the biggest retail banks in the world, and she's under pressure to deliver better user experiences for her customers. So she wants to know how she can use the cloud to understand her customers better, to offer personalized products to them. CISO of a very large consumer bank. He's under pressure to deliver security right. He's worried about cybersecurity, he's worried about outsider attacks, insider threats, and he wants to use the cloud to secure the most important assets to his business. I talked to a chief risk officer, one of the largest investment banks in the world. Today, he's spending the majority of his time and resources on maintaining the legacy infrastructure, and whatever's left over is going to compliance. He's under pressure to streamline and simplify his setup. He wants to find extra capacity so he can do more. And not just 1 or 2 risk runs, but to be able to do 100 more, and to be able to do it whenever he wants, and to be able to use more data in it, and to be able to use more complicated risk models. CIO of a very large bank. Now, she's under pressure to be able to modernize her legacy systems and to be able to create a culture of innovation in her company. So everyone wants to do it. They're under pressure to do it quickly. So why is it that 75% of the workloads are still on-prem? Why? Well, because the path to modernization and migration is not trivial. You want to take advantage of what cloud has to offer, but your infrastructure is complex, and it doesn't look like anyone else's. Your assets, your workloads, what your business wants to do, your SLAs, your company culture, these don't look like anyone else's, and they interact with each other in ways that you can't see elsewhere. So there is no one-size-fits-all guide or template that's going to magically work for your business. And you want to start the migration right away. But how do you pick which path? Do you lift and shift? Do you lift and optimize? Or do you just start from scratch and rebuild it all in the cloud? And you want your workforce to be more collaborative. You want them to be more engineering focused. But how did you create that culture? How do you upskill your team? How do you create a DevOps culture with CI/CD built in? What tool chains do you use? How do you embrace open source? And how do you transform your workforce while you're doing the transformation in your technology? And you want to avoid the obvious pitfalls. But there are so many of them. So what's the answer? Well, we're here to help. At Google, innovation doesn't stop with technology. We are also reinventing the relationship between a cloud provider and a cloud consumer to create a new kind of partnership, a white glove partnership, where we partner with you where you want, how you want, and where you want. We put you in control of your destiny. It's about taking everything that makes Google great and sharing with you and investing into the future of your business with you. So how do we do that? We create a tailor-made experience for architecting your workloads to take most advantage of what Google Cloud has to offer. And we tailor the journey for your needs. And we tailor our services and support so that you get to your business goals safely, securely, and in compliance. And we do that with you and with the help of our partners, because we know that you need the flexibility to pick which technology works for your needs and for your business. So what does the process look like? Well, first, it starts with a discovery and assessment of your current landscape. Then we create a tailor-made plan for you, for your unique needs and your deadlines and your cost expectations, your dependencies, your SLAs. And then comes the execution, where we actually work hand in hand with you on the migration and modernization. And finally, we continuously optimize. And it is important to us to enable our customers to operate wherever and whatever industry they're in. And you heard from Suzanne in yesterday's keynote. We invest every year in hundreds and hundreds of certifications and audits to independently verify our security, privacy, and compliance controls. And today, our financial services customers across the globe, in capital markets, in investment banking, in insurance, and asset management, fintechs are partnering with us to migrate and modernize their workloads. And one of those companies is here with us today to share their journey with Google Cloud. PaymentSense. If you use your credit card to make purchases online or in store, you're probably using PaymentSense's services. They are one of the largest payment providers in the world, 70,000 customers, 70,000 small and medium businesses, correct? And about 10 million pounds of transactions. All right, welcome on stage, Nick.
Okay, hi. Thank you. We rehearsed those stats just before. They were a little wonky, but I shall straighten you out. But thank you anyway. Okay, thank you. So hello, I'm Nick. I'm here to tell you a little bit about the fun and games that me and the rest of my PaymentSense crew have been having with Google Cloud over the last couple of years. Just first of all, show of hands, who's heard of PaymentSense? You see quite a few now. I do presentations, and it goes from kind of, you work for PaymentSense, I can see you, Nick, that doesn't count. But other than that, still quite a few now. They're starting to get a bit of momentum. You will, more of you, in a year's time, I'm hoping to make it on that previous slide that Ulku showed with all the big financial services companies. We didn't make it on that. I thought it was a bit harsh, but but we will get there. We will get there. So we provide payments to small businesses in the UK and the Republic of Ireland. We specialize in face-to-face payments, chip and pin devices for small businesses, sort of butchers, hairdressers. I don't know why I mention hairdressers, it's because I'm bitter about people with hair, I think. But the kebab shops, lots and lots of restaurants, fast service restaurants, no chains, smaller businesses, and there's lots of them. We think we have about 10% of the market in the UK, slightly less than the ROI, but still a fair chunk there too. We're fundamentally a software business, software and sales. We have about 400 people, about 100 of those are in tech, maybe 50 would be described as software engineers or developers, and we have about 600 self-employed field sellers who go around knocking on doors, talking people to move away from the evil likes of World Pay and Barclaycard. Boo, is there anybody here from there? Good, no, good. They wouldn't use Google Cloud, they're not cool enough. Right, so the other thing, my HR mate, Jack, told me to mention that we're in the Sunday Times best company to work for next year. That is good, apparently. It is good. I should shut up now, that's a good thing. Right, so great company. If you are interested in talking to us about a new opportunity, a bit of a sales spiel, knock me up on LinkedIn. Right, so we were living in the old world and we knew it. This is from a Googler who wrote this slide. I'm not having a go at him. I could have changed it, but it's not actually true. I didn't know we were operating in an old world, a miserable old world. I thought I was working in the new world. So I was a cloud cynic. Everyone used to bang on about the cloud and it used to do my nut in, to be honest. I ended up calling it the C word. I mean, obviously not the C word, that would be unprofessional, but everyone just wanged on about it, it did my nut in. So about 4 years ago, we implemented one of our core systems. We rebuilt it from scratch. It was all API-based, RESTful APIs, no less. And it had a Angular JS single-page application at the front end, so it was pretty modern. We implemented it on all new hardware, a super SAN that was across several data centers, all super replicated, about 50, 60 terabytes of usable storage. And I could vMotion some of my VMs, had about 100 VMs, across data centers without missing a beat. I thought I had a good cloud. I didn't want one of these public clouds. I had a cloud, it was private, and it was better as a result of being private. So I thought, you can take your C word and put it somewhere else. But then things started to go. So my lovely new application that was small and agile ended up turning into a bit of a middle-aged spread and ended up getting a bit bloated, a bit fat, and ended up being, the developers would take ages for a build, the test cycles were enormously long, and I'd basically inadvertently built a monolith. I didn't realize I'd done it, but I had, and this thing became a real bind. Everything was slow. The engineers ended up hating me. My CI/CD pipeline that I put together with my own fair hand ended up being a curse. It would take an hour to do a build. The QA people everyone hated me. And so I knew I needed to change. We also, things like PCI DSS was a terrible ball ache. We had loads of operating systems. It all needed to be covered. And it was just difficult. Life was difficult. So I knew I needed to change. But what? So I still liked my infrastructure. I thought it was cool. So I thought what we'll do is just split up the application. So not microservices, but split it up into maybe 4 different chunks of 5 or 6, whatever. And maybe that will solve my problems. And so I thought if I do that, I need a message bus. Message buses are cool, so they will get the services can talk to each other. So I set some of my server guys off to go and install Kafka. Kafka is cool. It's got a cool logo. It's round bits and stuff. I like Kafka. So they went away and they put in Confluent Kafka because we're a FCA-regulated e-money institution, and you have to do stuff in an enterprise scale, otherwise they're not happy. So they went away, and he came back and said, I've had to deploy like 10 VMs with about a terabyte of storage and enough processing power so when you turn the thing on, the data center lights dim. And I thought, this is enough processing power for Gareth Southgate to analyze the players' potential for every game in history. If he still did that, he wouldn't pick Jack Grealish. It's wrong. I don't know. There's some football people here. He's got no eyes. That's my only explanation for that. No eyes. Never forgive him for 96. Anyway, let's move on. I'm digressing. So we went through his blind data. The Kafka thing didn't work. So we were messing around with a few of the clouds, and we looked at Google, and we looked at PubSub, and it's one of the few things that's a little bit proprietary in the Google Cloud, but we looked at it, and we did what we wanted to do at Kafka in about 3 clicks. So we just thought, this is the way. So we realized that if we were going to have a service-based architecture, we needed a public cloud. And so after several more U-turns and change of directions, we ended up saying, right, we're going to have to completely go for it and do a complete rebuild. So we looked at lift and shift, and that was a total no-starter because we just lift and shift all our problems somewhere else. So it ended up being the kind of one of the extreme ones on Ulku's slide that was basically rebuild it. We tried to rescue some of the code, and I told my boss we rescued a load of the code. He won't watch this, so I'm all good. But in reality, we rescued 0 or very close to 0, so we had to rebuild. But we committed to do 100% platform as a service. No VMs, no nothing, lovely. So this is a cool picture. I don't really know what it is. Google came up with it. But it's a thing. So I'll move on to this. So I don't know if this is going to work on this big screen. It kind of works. I'm not going to talk through all this. I guess a lot of you are getting weary of these kind of blue hexagon things that all look very similar but slightly different. But I'll pick out a few points. So the first thing is started this with 50 C# devs. And we were working in a completely different environment. So, they were saying, where's the SQL server? So there isn't a SQL server. So, well, where do I deploy to my IIS server? There isn't an IIS server. So we were taking these guys that were massively out of their comfort zone and trying to get them working in a very, very different environment. So we were still claiming to rescue a lot of this code. So we basically repackaged some of it and we rebuilt most of it using .NET Core, Docker, and Google Kubernetes Engine. So you can see on that kind of lower side. We started off using Cloud Data Store and a little bit of Firestore as well, but we found it a little bit limiting. It didn't play particularly well with C#, so the developers were getting a little bit annoyed with that. So we ended up using MongoDB Atlas that does run on GCP. Not that it really makes a lot of difference, but does good peering between the two. And we've had a lot of success with that. Everyone likes Mongo. Mongo's worked really well. We have a choice of data stores, so we still have services using Cloud Data Store, Firestore, and the ridiculously named, sorry Google, Cloud Spanner. I'm actually used to it now, but the first few times I heard that, I thought, how could they possibly have called it that? But anyway, Cloud Spanner it is. It's like a magic relational database in the sky. I've done lots of stuff with database over the world. It really does kind of solve a problem that's been lurking for years. On the right-hand side, you can see a colo. So being in the payments industry, we're blessed with PCI DSS, and the security guys in PCI are pretty, I won't say backwards because they're not backwards, but some of the stuff is a little bit old school, so they insist on hardware security modules to store your keys and also to do encryption, decryption of the messaging. And they have to, it's almost like a nuclear launch procedure to set these things up. It's ridiculous, but we have to use that. We don't have any choice. Google don't offer, none of the clouds offer anything that would tick that box. They do key management, but they don't do payments HSMs. So we've found that there's colos that work very closely with Google, and you can get they're actually in the same data centers a lot of the time, so you can actually effectively plug in a colo into GCP, and it's working really well for us. You also see there's another evil cloud on the side there. Won't name the names, but some of our systems still are in other places, and so we found the PubSub, and in this case SQS, is reasonably good to try and interoperate and get the things working. We've also had a running battle between two of my architects, one of them at the back that I was pointing out earlier, around the App Engine versus GKE. So GKE gives us a lot more flexibility, where App Engine is super simple. But looking at Cloud Run, that was some of the demos yesterday, and we've been spiking it already, that looks like the way we're going. We also use SSO from Google, so we use Google Normal, Google Sign-In across all our systems. It's super easy. All of our users have Gmail anyway, and so it just works. It's really great. And for our customers, we use Firebase Auth through Magic Links for our iOS and Android apps. So that's also worked really well for us. I think that might be all I'm going to say. This is an even more complicated picture that I'm not going to talk through massive detail either. DevOps. DevOps is the new thing. I tried to recruit a DevOps engineer with GCP, and I've recently given up. They all want £4 million a second. I don't know if any of you guys have tried. It's literally ridiculous. I think there's about 10 in the entire universe. Probably not true, that's the way it feels. So what we've found, we've had a lot of success in just making our own. It's the same with the C# guys that I talked about before. We've converted a load of those to Go. I didn't talk about it in the previous diagram. But we do a load of ground-up stuff that we build in Go. It works better in the various Google tooling than C#. But we've found that we've had a lot of success of moving C# devs, some of them pretty long in the tooth, to be honest. He probably knows what I'm talking about. But they've moved over and they're now perfectly proficient in Go. So I wouldn't think that just because you're moving technology, you need to change developers. A good dev is a good dev, regardless of... So this thing, we spent about 6 months building this. And it's a ball ache. It was difficult. It was quite tricky. It's basically Cloud Build and Helm, but with a lot of custom scripting in as well. So we've linked it into our currently on-premise, a little tiny bit embarrassing, Atlassian suites. So Jira and Bitbucket specifically in this example. And so if you create a ticket in Jira, you get the Bitbucket branch by magic, and then everything will trigger to build an entire environment for you. So we use Terraform for the infrastructure as code, and then we use Helm to configure the Kubernetes clusters. So it's complicated. It doesn't look well, it does look complicated, but there's quite a lot of custom in there. And I think this is where Cloud Run will hopefully come and sort us out. I saw a session yesterday saying they replaced something that sounded pretty similar to this with a pretty much out-of-the-box Cloud Run that would be good. And then you don't have to buy a CI/CD DevOps engineer for £4 million a second. So in terms of the other side of DevOps, in terms of kind of SRE, site reliability stuff, we use Stackdriver a lot, like I'm sure everyone else does, all plugged into Slack and PagerDuty. Slack just is starting to take over the world. I can now do my expenses in Workday in Slack. Sounds dangerous. But, and we use Jaeger for distributed tracing. This has been a pretty... a lot of work here, but we've got something. It's a bit of a technological marvel that's not really a very good thing, but it does work well, and it makes our engineers' life a lot easier. Around the data warehousing and analytics, this is pretty new. It's pretty embryonic, to be honest. And one of my arrows is wrong as well that I'll point out. But we like BigQuery. So our old infrastructure was based around Microsoft SQL servers, data warehouses, a lot of SSIS, that's the ETL technology in SQL Server, and analytics cubes. And whilst it was quite good, and we used Power BI for the visualization, while it was quite good, it was very brittle, and it was very difficult to get data in. Well, it wasn't difficult, it was just time-consuming and very, very fixed. So there'll be a new data source, and we'd have to wait weeks or months to get that properly integrated in. The thing we've found out already with BigQuery is you can just kind of chuck it at it in its native form and start using it off the bat. We're starting to experiment with DBT. We have a new chief data officer who's brought this in to build more appropriate data marts for the analysts. And we're looking at Looker, quite a lot. We've used it a bit now. And Data Studio we've been using a while. Data Studio is super basic, but it's good for what it does. I haven't put SQL and Excel that are clearly what everyone's still going to use. But it's just the facts of the matter. For ETL coming in from sort of external data sources, we're building microservices to do that in Go, and obviously running that in App Engine, super simple. And we're replicating our old data warehouse while we're making this move into BigQuery. So the machine learning stuff, you can't go to a Google presentation without somebody mentioning machine learning and AI, but in reality, we've done nothing. If the rest is embryonic, this is like an unfertilized egg. But we are going to do it, and what this does allow is it allows pretty easy to pick this stuff up, so we're quite excited about that. Right, we're back to the Google slides. Inspirational photos. So life in the new world, it's glorious. So I had a go at his text about we're in the old world and we knew it. But this is true. I do like it. I think everyone likes it. The rest of the team like it. we've had a lot of time. But the first thing I'll say is it's more expensive, as in monthly cost is higher, and quite a lot higher as well. So I think that most of the cloud providers are no longer selling based on cost savings alone. That's not really the vibe. It costs us more, but what we get is we get huge developer efficiency gains. So I got all my tech leads, there's about 7 or 8 of them, together. And I said, how much has the new world meant you can develop more software? And the lowest number they came up with was 50%. Now, I've heard a lot of stats in these things, everyone doing things 8 times faster, 25 times better, and I don't really buy any of it, because otherwise software sort of do itself. But normally, if you talk to a developer, you have to divide what they tell you by 2 or times it by 2, depending on what they're telling you, but you definitely don't take the first answer. So even if it's a 25% improvement in efficiency of developing on this new world, and I don't know how much you guys have CapEx budgets you throw at software development, but millions, tens of millions, maybe more, you know, the kind of, if you can get 10, 20, 25% efficiency gains on that, any operational cost, monthly cost going up, is likely to be swallowed up by that very, very quickly. And the reality is you probably don't actually realize those savings by firing a load of developers. Zen at the back, don't worry. You're good, safe. You actually just get more stuff. That's better for everyone, right? So we have genuinely seen a huge, huge benefit by doing this. People like the FCA and the lovely PCI DSS, like GCP, they know it, they recognize it. PCI DSS used to be a massive ball ache on our old colo infrastructure because there was lots and lots of operating systems and there's huge amounts of work to antivirus, locking down the services, documenting all the ports in use. We don't have to do any of that anymore. We've got lots of PCI environments and they're borderline easy on GCP, and I didn't think I'd ever say that. You take the operating system away, PCI becomes really easy. So I'll kind of leave it on why GCP, because all that stuff I've said, you could pretty much apply to any public cloud, really, if I'm honest. But there are reasons we chose GCP. I mean, there's the obvious stuff. I think it has the best Kubernetes infrastructure, especially with Cloud Run coming out. It looks like they've gone to next level on that. And the reporting out and AI, I think, is better than everyone else's. But that's not really the fundamental reason we chose GCP. We chose GCP because we have an account manager and architect that just help us all the time. So Derek and Kirill have basically looked after us from day one. We're not a huge customer. We don't spend hundreds of thousands a month. We spend a chunk, but we don't spend a huge amount. But we have monthly calls. They look after us. If we have a problem, they just answer it. They arranged sessions in San Francisco with product managers for data store, and I said I didn't like it. They listened, and they're trying to build on it. They just feel like a very responsive organization that listens. They don't just listen to the likes of SAP. They also listen to me, and I like that a lot. Coming from a kind of smaller colo where I could call the MD, having someone that will do something there and then is really very, very useful for me. We had a bit of a ticket wobble. There was a bit of an issue last week. I don't know if you know about it. Maybe you do. But anyway, there was a problem, and the ticket didn't seem to be getting a lot of traction. I think it was last weekend. I texted Derek. It was a Saturday. Texted straight back, said, do you want me to call a P0? Only Google can make an issue P0, and it basically sets the alarm bells off at Mountain View. Everyone gets out of bed and fixes your problem. I said no because it was OTT, but the fact it was offered is pretty powerful. It's powerful to me. Buck stops with me when it comes to technology in my business, and when you have someone that says that for you, that's valuable. We did a load of stuff with AWS. I moved it all over to GCP. I'm not just saying that because Ulku's looking at me and nodding. It's actually true. That's it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for that very honest conversation, Nick. We do have some time for questions. So we have some mic runners. So if you have questions, I see some already. But maybe while we're getting the mic to the first gentleman over there, I'll start you off with a question. So what's next?
I think it's taking advantage of the data capabilities of GCP. We've done a lot of stuff around application, and we're making a lot of headway. There's still a lot more to build and move, but the data capabilities is where we're going to really start seeing some benefits. Some of the AI stuff, there's a lot of stuff we could always have done but couldn't because we weren't set up right. That's really where I think we're going to go.
Wonderful. Do you have the mic? Please.
Could you just elaborate a little bit on the difficulties you may have had between GCP and AWS and getting data between the two and getting them to play alongside each other in a hybrid environment?
We haven't really had any problems getting them talking to each other. If I said that, I didn't mean to. I used AWS a fair bit, and it's not really the problem of AWS or why I moved away. I'd set it up all wrong. I'd built a whole load of infrastructure as a service. I built a whole load of Docker. I say I, wasn't me, it was someone else, but built a whole load of Docker and Docker Storm stuff, and it just didn't work. So I don't have anything, I'm not saying anything bad about AWS, I'm sure they're really good. But we use SQS, so we publish, we subscribe to message on SQS and take data that way.
Sorry, there weren't expense problems in actually getting the transactional data out of AWS? You weren't charged enormously?
No, we don't, there isn't huge amounts of data traveling where we do today. It's merely just notifications, that's it. Good. No,
Well, we got
got away
another
with
one
it.
right there. Could we get a mic over here? Could you keep your hand up so we can, yeah.
Hi, you mentioned your CI/CD isn't optimal. What would you change and what would you have done differently about that if you'd been starting again?
I wouldn't, well, there's lots of conflicting views within my team on this. I think what we've ended up with is something that's functionally really very good. I know there's some real, really good engineering gone into it, and it's great. It's just, it's complicated. Not necessarily to the engineers, it's relatively easy, although things like Helm aren't, you can bypass all that. I believe there's next generation stuff that kind of wrap this all up in a product. That's what I'm seeing coming down the road. I wouldn't engineer a complex, hand-built. There shouldn't be so much, we use bash scripts, there shouldn't be so much scripting, and I think that was as a result of the tooling not being quite there. So GCP gives you a whole load of great tools, but you have to stitch them all together somehow, and we stitch them together using scripts, and the end result has been really good, and we probably won't replace it because we put the effort in, but it took us 6 months, and where I think there are newer tooling coming out that I haven't used, so I can't really talk about it, but from the outside it looks like it just does this out of the box.
Yeah. And could you pass the mic right behind you? Actually, there's a hand right there. Thank you.
You mentioned the expense and scarcity of DevOps engineers and trying to grow your own. How are you approaching that?
So, I mean, I've recently told our HR team to just give up because I was genuinely being sent people with 2 or 3 years experience, overall, development experience, wanting the wrong side of 100 grand. So you've only just started, and it's because they have some GCP, they've got Helm, or they've built these CI/CD pipelines and they think they're worth it. I don't agree with them personally. So what we've done is we've just taken regular software developers with an interest, because some people are a little bit more leaning towards that infrastructure side with an interest, and I've probably empowered them to go and get a job being paid 3 times as much. I just need to somehow hold on to them, lock them in the basement or something. But we found just regular software developers can pick this up well, not easily, but it hasn't been a problem. It's the same as moving C# developers to Go. We haven't had a problem.
And if I may add, it's not just the CI/CD developers. That's one of the most common questions that we get. How do we find talent across the board? How do I find people that knows Google Cloud or just cloud in general? It is a real problem, and that's one of the areas that we help with training your own staff. Because honestly, like you've done, I think the best way is to take your workforce that you already have, that know your businesses, and then train them to operate in this new world. I did see another hand. Sorry, yes, thank you.
Hi. What have been the business benefits for moving from your old architecture to your new architecture?
The key one is what I was banging on at the end there, but by the developer efficiency. So when we first launched the thing I talked about 4 years ago, when I was boasting about my services and AngularJS, we were doing up to about 20 production releases a day. I know some people talk about doing thousands, I don't know how they do that, but anyway, we were pretty pleased with it, so we were pretty smug about doing it. But nearer the end, it was getting down to 1 or 2, sometimes none, because of the bloat. So one of the big things is we've got agility again. This system's relatively new now, so maybe we have to fight to make sure we don't go back into that space. But because we've got genuinely lots and lots of microservices, it should avoid that. And I think the only way to do microservices on a public cloud, I think doing it on an old school infrastructure is madness. So the business benefit is predominantly developer efficiencies, but definitely things like PCI we do an audit, we just fly through it. We're doing one now, actually, so I shouldn't say that. I've probably cursed it. I'm going to touch some wood. But generally, we fly through it. It's just tick, tick, tick. There's an assessment where Google take responsibility for over half this self-assessment questionnaire. It's great. There's been lots, but the straight monthly OPEX, it's the opposite. It's gone up.
All right, I see more hands. First,
I have a mic here. Sorry.
Where's the mic? Oh, there you go. You got the mic. Go
Hi,
ahead.
Nick.
Hi.
Can you tell us what your biggest surprising success and maybe the biggest misstep that
Sounds
you
like an
made in the
interview question,
transformation?
dude. I think ever seeing developers happy is a big surprise. It's not really their vibe. But the biggest surprising success, I think that the fact that you've moved from this, and I guess it's not a surprise, that you got moved away from a complex set of infrastructure with a whole load of setups on the servers, things like IIS config and all this kind of stuff. You've basically got rid of all of it, and you just drop a piece of code on something and it just runs, like things you can do with App Engine. I've been around the block, you can probably tell from the tired face, and it's like, that is just like, that's almost miraculous. Things like Spanner that I mentioned, a ridiculous name, but oh my God, if you tried to build that yourself, if you tried to have a multi-region, always up-to-date, single relational database, that just feels like, it still feels like witchcraft. The thing that's gone a little badly, I guess they give you a whole load of rope and you can end up hanging yourself with it. And whilst I did get a lot of help from Derek and Kirill, it would have been really nice if someone had just slapped me around the face and do it that way. And we'd have probably ended up where we are now, but we spun a lot of wheels. Like, we probably wasted a year of doing it, and we had to do it trial and error. Maybe we had to find our way, and maybe that was the only way that we had to go through that exercise. But it felt, after about 6 months, I felt we'd made no progress at all. And then we ended up having a couple of microservices called by the old stuff, and it just made it worse. And it was just like, we actually went backwards before we... But once we've actually made it happen, I can't really think of anything notable that's made me sad.
And everyone's experience is different, right? I think that's one of the things I was trying to touch on this morning, earlier today. It is going to be unique. How you end up doing it is going to be different than someone else's. And sorry, Nick, it's too late to rename Spanner. You're going to have to live with that one.
I'm used to it now.
All right. Where is the mic? Okay, here.
Hi, yeah. You said about rewriting your old application that was not really that old. And I believe you spend a lot of money and time and effort to do that.
Yeah.
Now that you've done, looking back, do you think you could keep polishing the old application the way it was to make it work? Or no, it was really worth the effort and the money and the time to build it from scratch?
It was worth it, honestly. It's not about Google or the cloud. It was really the fundamental issue was the monolith versus the microservices. I think with when you've got, the monolith only ever gets bigger, and your problems only ever get worse. And so at some point you have to do something fairly drastic. We tried to chop it up a few times. That didn't work. It had to be, then maybe there were other ways, but the way we did it, I don't think we had any choice. And in hindsight, I'd have probably done the whole lot and go. We tried, because we had these C# devs, I thought, they're only going to know C#. We've ended up with a whole load of C#. It's fine, it's working fine, but it is a bit of a second-class citizen in GCP, despite the fact that they deny it. It is, so it's getting better actually on that front. But the hindsight, I would have. But I'm still happy with what I got. Yeah.
How did you handle data security and GDPR privacy?
Someone's dropped a GDPR question. Jesus. Obviously we had all these problems in the old world, so we have to make sure that we centralize data, make sure we control it correctly. Things like SQL Server give you some quite nice tools to do that because it's a well-established big data server. The tooling in GCP around that kind of fine-grained data security is a little bit worse, I would say, because it's a little bit more blunt in terms of the security options, particularly things like data store. Mongo's better, and we got some advantages around that. I mean, we lock down functionality to the people that are allowed to use it, and we follow all those procedures. We went through the whole misery that every other bugger did last year, May, whatever it was, 2018, and we went through and we made sure that all the work we did in the old world, we've made sure we carried over to the new world. I can talk to you a bit more after that. I think I'm going to bore everyone to death if I keep talking about data security, no offense.
But in general, I'll add that in financial services, usually the first conversation we have with customers is about security. It's about compliance. And we do offer, GDPR and other compliance and certifications that we help our customers to go through with it. But obviously, it's a shared responsibility. We offer our services, and our customers have to then build on those.
Yeah, I mean, data breaches and stuff like that is one of the few things that could really damage our business. So we have teams of people, that's all they worry about. But it hasn't massively changed in the new world. Still the same worries.
Yeah. So most of our inquisitive minds are on this side of the floor. So if you're sitting on this side, we'd love to hear from you. But I know someone's got the mic over there. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, you mentioned a few words around App Engine, also Cloud Run. I would like you to give us more insights about what do you think about the serverless world? Do you think that is an alternative path for developing, a complementary path, or?
I think serverless is probably the way forward. I think that's probably the end game. I had a lot of conversations with Kirill, our architect who's been helping us out, when we were having this running battle, whether it was App Engine or GAE, Kubernetes GKE, and he said it's all coming together. And I think Cloud Run is the first side of it coming together. I think, I don't know, they'll probably deny it, but they'll probably retire those two, and it will end up all being serverless through Cloud Run, I suspect. But I think serverless is the way forward. I don't think there's very few things that need that flexibility that you get with low-level Kubernetes, but who knows? These guys know better than me.
Yeah, I mean, serverless is clearly, very important to us. It's an area that we invest heavily in. And even like what we traditionally call managed services, like we focus on getting that complexity away. And, things like BigQuery is the serverless database management system. You don't have to worry about setting up the infrastructure. It auto-scales and it auto-tunes itself. So this idea of taking away the complexity of managing infrastructure is one of our #1 priorities across the board.
Simple is good.
Yeah. All right, on this side.
Hi. So do you have? So you mentioned about putting your services in the cloud, but do you put all of your services on there? I presume. What are the ones that benefit the most? And do you have anything locally?
We do. We put all of our custom-built services on there. We use a number of products that are hosted in various places. We're also looking to migrate those. One of them uses a bloody great Oracle database, and that's been a problem. But I believe, someone might be able to help me out with that, I believe that problem is coming to an end in terms of hosting Oracle databases on GCP. So we will ultimately have everything, the whole payment processing stack and all software around it will all be on GCP. All the stuff that we custom build today is all on GCP now. But as I say, ultimately we want everything.
Thank you.
I don't know if I see more hands. Is there one on that side? I see one on this side, if we can get him the mic.
A long way to go.
It's a long way.
Hi.
Hi.
For PCI DSS compliance, you mentioned physical encryption, and can't you move it to Google KMS service?
Sadly not. PCI list approved devices that you can use. It has to be on their list. And there is you can get general purpose HSMs that do encryption, decryption, and key storage, that kind of thing. They're not on the list. They have to have specific functions on these things that perform payment functions. And there's no capability on or AWS, any of them. None of them provide payment HSMs that are approved. It's not even like they're either approved by PCI or not. They don't provide the functionality that a payment HSM needs to provide. And so sadly not. I'm sure at some point when there's enough payment customers knocking around, that will become available. It's not even been mentioned.
Yeah. And we have some
Real shame.
specialists today that I'm sure would be happy to talk to you.
It's actually a massive cost for us because they're extremely expensive, and the hosting of them is extremely expensive. And so I wish you could sort it out. But yeah, but it's absolutely not at the moment.
Get it for you.
Cool.
All right, let me scan one last time for any final questions before we let Nick go. Well, thank you very much.
There's one more.
One more.
It's going to come a really difficult one. I just
All
know
right.
it. Last one.
All right, last.
One ruined my day.
Last question.
Oh, hang on. It was some guy. Oh, sorry. That's all right. Go, yes.
Hello.
All right, you got 4 minutes, 30 seconds. If you can do 2 questions, we'll let you do it.
Hello, this is a quick one. How much have you got left on your in-house data center?
Say again.
How much software are you still running in-house? Are you anything, or is it all
Loads. Right, so the old system is still rotting around and serving some old requests. It is genuinely, the new one is taking pretty much all over. The old one will probably sit there and rot forever, serving some stuff, but it won't be any line of business. We'll scale it back. We'll remove the expensive licensing and stuff, but we had an old system from like 5 years before that that's still running in something. So that's the thing, there is no cost saving to our colo. The colo will stay probably forever, the colo infrastructure that we have. We just won't bother upgrading it too much, and if we do, it will be only sort of key components to keep it running. It's quite useful, there's loads of resource on it, it's amazing, it's still amazing. I can't, so I don't want to throw it away, it's a massive waste.
Yeah. All right, we'll take that last question.
When you went from building your data centers yourself and moving everything into the cloud, did you have to, as an organization, change the way that you did your funding? So were you sort of traditionally CapEx and had to worry about that whole split?
So traditionally we like to CapEx everything for good old EBITDA, but this has pushed some of that onto into the P&L. That is definitely a downside. But it's worth it. Overall, it's worth it. But you're absolutely right. It is something that if we could have chosen the other way around, we would have done, but that's not an option in this model. Yeah,
and actually that's one of the conversations we advise our customers to start talking internally ahead of moving to the cloud, because it does change your financials, right? How you treat your assets. So yeah, it is a change, and the organization needs to be ready for it. All right. Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Nick.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.